Let's bring into the conversation now a man who has been the man of the hour, and uncomfortably so, for months now. He is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, one of the hardest jobs in politics. Mr. Tom Perez, thank you for joining us tonight, sir. It's good to have you here.
Pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you.
Let me ask you about your dueling frontrunners tonight. We've got 5 candidates left in the race: Tulsi Gabbard, Mike Bloomberg, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden. We've seen Joe Biden do very well tonight, get poll closing calls in North Carolina and Virginia. As the former vice president continues to project this incredible strength in southern states, what does that mean to the overall Democratic strategy for the general election when we think about the Democratic Party's ability to compete in states like that?
Well, one thing, Rachel, that I'm most proud of in the 3+ years I've been on the job is that we've become a 50-state party again. One of the first elections we invested in was Doug Jones in Alabama. We invested in 2018 in Georgia. We have an initiative called Organizing Corps, where we're putting 1,200 organizers in 8 battleground states to hand over to the nominee. Those states include North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and Arizona. We're organizing everywhere, and I think Democrats can win everywhere. And, you know, when you ignore the South, you are really slapping African-American voters in the face, and we shouldn't do that. That's the backbone of our party. And so we're absolutely competing there. We've got 2 Senate races in Georgia, and we're going to compete heavily down there.
Mr. Chairman, there's been a lot of drama within the field over the last 72 hours since South Carolina, seeing 3 of your candidates drop out, seeing 2 of them endorse Vice President Biden in dramatic fashion. Is the Democratic Party formally, the DNC, are you playing any role in those kinds of backroom negotiations, those kinds of discussions among candidates and formal candidates about who stays in the race, who gets out, and who endorses who?
No, those are up to the candidates themselves, and we leave that to the candidates, and they know when it's time to end their campaigns, and I trust them to do that. And what you saw from the decisions of candidates over the last few days, they understand that it's not about any one candidate. It's about making sure Democrats can win. And I respect their judgment. I respect the judgment of those who are still in the race. Tonight is young. We've got 2 or 3 states that have reported, or at least that you've projected. We got 11 to go. And again, this is all about math. This is about 1,991. So a lot more to go.
One of the things that's happened on your chairmanship is that a lot of states that used to run caucuses have been talked out of it. Obviously, we've still got Iowa and Nevada who had their caucuses this year. But just tonight, Maine, Colorado, Minnesota, Utah, I might have even missed one, are all states that previously had caucuses that tonight are going to be holding primaries instead. You have signaled in the past that you're happy with that you'd rather have these states doing primaries. That still hold tonight? Do you have any regrets on that, on that movement?
No. Well, America tonight are the 4 party chairs in those states that you just mentioned, who now don't have to run their own caucus. And the reason that I prefer primaries over caucuses is more people participate. Look at the record turnout in New Hampshire. We busted through the turnout of 2008 in Obama. Look at South Carolina. People said you'd never eclipse Barack Obama in 2008, and we did. And we had 14 caucus states 4 years ago. We had 7 this time. And we're going to have a conversation after the season is over. We can't require states to move because it requires an act of the legislature. And there's some Republican governors who won't pay for a taxpayer for an actual primary. But we're certainly going to continue this conversation because I certainly prefer primaries to caucuses. More people participate. That's the bottom line. We got great energy. Let's make it as easy as possible for eligible people to vote.
Democratic Party Chairman Tom Perez, sir, I know it's going to be a long, long night for you as well as for us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.